There comes a moment in life when you stop calling it bad luck and you start calling it a pattern. The wrong people didn't just happen to you. They revealed something, they exposed something, they mirrored something. Not that you were broken, but that somewhere along the way, you became available in the wrong way, available to confusion, available to people who gave just enough, but never enough to feel safe. And that is where it begins. Because people do not learn your value from your potential, they learn it from your patterns. If your pattern says, I tolerate mixed signals, I explain away disrespect, I stay when things feel off, then the wrong people don't feel like intruders. They feel comfortable, not because they are evil, but because your boundaries never interrupted them. And this is the dangerous part. You call it patience, but it's fear of being left. You call it love, but it's hope that if you give enough, someone will finally choose you. You call it understanding, but it's self-abandonment. And the longer this continues, the more invisible you become to yourself. This is not about blaming you. This is about waking you up, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And once you understand it, you can change it. In this video, you're going to learn the shifts that stop this cycle. Not surface advice, not temporary confidence, real internal changes that protect your energy, filter your relationships, and rebuild your self-respect from the inside out. But understand this first, this is not about becoming cold. This is not about pushing people away. This is about becoming someone who is no longer easy to misuse. And everything begins here. Shift 1. You stop adjuning for love. This is where most people lose themselves, quietly, gradually, without realizing it. You think you're being yourself, but you're not. You're performing. You're not speaking, you're managing perception. You're not connecting, you're trying to be accepted. You're not expressing, you're adjusting. And it shows up in small ways. You laugh quicker than you feel. You say it's okay when it isn't. You explain your worth to people who benefit from not understanding it. You become easier, softer, more convenient. Not because that's who you are, but because you're trying to be chosen. And at first it looks like kindness, but over time it becomes expensive. Because when you are always auditioning, you never arrive. You are never fully seen, only evaluated. And this is why so many people feel lonely, even in relationships, because they are not loved for who they are. They are liked for how well they perform. Epictetus warned about this centuries ago. If you wish to please others, you have already ruined your life. That line is not harsh, it is accurate. Because the moment your life becomes centered around approval, you stop living from the inside out. And in today's world, this is more dangerous than ever. You are constantly being trained to be likable, be agreeable, be easy to consume. You polish yourself, edit yourself, soften yourself, until you become acceptable, but no longer authentic. And here's the truth most people avoid. The wrong people love the edited version of you. They love low resistance. They love unclear standards. They love someone who doubts themselves. Because doubt makes you easier to control. Self-betrayal does not look like destruction. It looks like adjustment. And adjustment becomes identity. So what changes when you stop auditioning? Everything. You stop trying to be chosen by people who cannot recognize value. You stop chasing clarity from people committed to confusion. You stop calling chemistry safety. You stop treating your empathy like it's unlimited. And most importantly, you stop overworking to keep connections alive that only survive when you disappear inside them. That is the shift. Not loud, not dramatic. Just this: I will not twist myself into a shape that makes disrespect easier. That single decision changes your entire life. Because self-respect is not an attitude, it is a filter. It changes your tone, your timing, your tolerance. your silence, your standards, and the wrong people feel it immediately, not because you said anything, because access changed. And once access changes, everything changes. You are no longer easy to reach, easy to confuse, easy to keep halfway. You become clear, and clarity filters people. But this is only the beginning, because even if you stop performing, there is another trap that keeps people stuck, and it's more dangerous, because it feels like hope. Shift 2. You stop falling in love with potential. This is where most people lose years of their life, not in toxic relationships, but in almost relationships, connections that feel promising but never become real. And the entry point is always the same: potential. They seem interesting, they seem deep, they seem like they could be something. And your mind does the rest. You start building a version of them that doesn't exist yet. You translate their silence. You excuse their inconsistency. You explain their distance. They're just overwhelmed. They're not good at expressing themselves. They have a good heart, and maybe some of that is true, but here's the part you ignore: the pattern doesn't change. They still disappear when consistency is required. They still give attention in doses too small to feel safe, but just enough to keep you attached. They still want closeness without clarity. And you stay, not because of who they are, but because of who they could be. That is where self-betrayal begins, not with drama, with interpretation. You become the translator, the justifier, the emotional worker, and while you are doing all that, something disappears: your ability to trust reality. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Never value anything that makes you lose your self-respect." And this is exactly what happens, because every time you invest in someone who keeps showing you inconsistency, you are breaking a promise to yourself. The promise that your peace matters. The promise that clarity is required. The promise that your heart is not a testing ground. And this matters more than ever today, because modern relationships are built on access, not accountability. People can text you at night, ignore you in the morning, watch your life without being part of it. They create the illusion of intimacy without the substance. And if you are not careful, you will fall in love with the illusion. But when you truly value yourself, something shifts. You stop asking, "Could this work someday?" And you start asking, "What is happening right now?" You stop focusing on charm and start focusing on consistency. You stop being impressed by words and start observing patterns. Because patterns never lie. Patterns reveal truth, and truth protects you. The moment you stop chasing potential, you return to reality. And reality is where self-respect lives. That is where your power begins. And once you see clearly, you stop chasing almost. You stop worshipping possibility. You stop calling inconsistency complexity. And suddenly, a lot of the wrong people disappear. Not because you pushed them away, because you stopped holding the door open. But even then, there is one deeper layer, the hardest one, because it's not about them, it's about you, your patterns, your history, your emotional blueprint. And if you don't understand it, you will repeat it. That is where the next shift begins. There is a moment that changes everything, not when you meet someone new, not when something ends, but when you finally ask yourself one uncomfortable question: why does this feel familiar? Because the truth is, you were not randomly attracting the wrong people, you were recognizing them, recognizing their energy, recognizing their distance, recognizing their inconsistency, because it felt like something you already understood. And that is where the real problem lives, not in them, in your pattern. Because familiarity is powerful. Even when it hurts, you don't chase what is good for you. You chase what feels known. And if what felt known in your past was inconsistency, confusion, emotional distance, then that becomes your emotional normal. Not healthy, just normal, and your mind will always move toward what feels normal, even if it destroys you. That is why you ignore red flags, not because you're blind, because you're comfortable. That is why you stay longer than you should, not because you're weak, because leaving feels unfamiliar. And that is why you keep repeating the same story with different people, because the pattern was never broken. Seneca said something powerful. We suffer more in imagination than in reality, but there's another layer to that. We also suffer from repetition, repeating what we never healed, repeating what we never questioned, repeating what we mistook for love. And the longer you repeat it, the more it feels like fate. It always happens to me. No, you allow it to continue, because awareness was missing. Shift 3. You break the pattern, not just the connection. Most people think growth looks like this: ending the relationship, blocking the number, walking away. And yes, that matters, but it is not enough. Because if the pattern stays, the story repeats. Different face, same experience. So real growth is not just ending something, it is understanding it. Why did this feel familiar? Why did I ignore what I saw? Why did I stay when I felt unsure? These questions are not comfortable, but they are necessary, because without them, you are guessing, and guessing leads to repetition. So you must go deeper, not into blame, into awareness. Because awareness creates interruption, and interruption creates change. Look at your past honestly. Where did you feel anxious? Where did you over-explain? Where did you try harder than necessary? That is where the pattern lives, not in the outcome, in your response. Because your response reveals your conditioning, and conditioning can be rewritten, but only if you see it. This is where power returns. Not when you find the right person, when you become the right version of yourself, the version that does not chase confusion, does not tolerate inconsistency, does not romanticize emotional absence, because clarity becomes your standard, and clarity eliminates chaos. You stop asking, do they like me? And you start asking, do they show up consistently? You stop asking, are they interested? And you start asking, are they clear? Because interest without clarity is manipulation, and clarity without effort is meaningless. You begin to require both, and when you do, your entire experience changes. Not because people change, because your standards do, and standards filter reality. Shift 4. You stop explaining your worth. There is a habit that quietly destroys self-respect, and most people don't even realize they're doing it. Explaining your intentions, explaining your feelings, explaining your value, over and over again. Not because you're expressive, because you're trying to be understood by someone who benefits from not understanding you. Think about that. If someone truly values you, they don't need constant explanation. They pay attention, they notice, they respond. But when someone is inconsistent, you start working harder. You clarify more, you justify more, you explain more, and slowly the dynamic shifts. You become the one trying to maintain the connection, and they become the one receiving it without effort. That imbalance destroys attraction, but more importantly, it destroys your self-respect. Because every time you over-explain, you send one message: my value needs approval. And the moment your value needs approval, it is no longer stable. Epictetus said, if someone does not value what you bring, let them be wrong. That is power. Not proving your worth, standing in it. Because the right people do not need convincing, they recognize, and the wrong people benefit from your confusion. So the shift is simple, but difficult. You stop explaining, not completely, but excessively. You express once, clearly, then you observe. Do they respond with clarity? Do they match your energy? Do they show consistency? If not, you don't argue. You don't chase, you don't convince, you withdraw quietly. Because your energy is not meant to be spent proving your worth. It is meant to be invested where it is recognized. And this is where something powerful happens. You become harder to access, not emotionally closed, but emotionally selective. And selectivity creates value. Because the more you protect your energy, the more it becomes respected. But even with awareness, even with boundaries, even with clarity, there is one final shift, the deepest one. Because everything so far has been about how you relate to others. But this last shift is about how you relate to yourself. And if you don't master it, nothing else will hold. That is where the final part begins. At the core of everything, every pattern, every wrong connection, every repeated disappointment. There is one truth most people avoid. You are not just choosing the wrong people. You were abandoning yourself to keep them. Read that again. Not accidentally, repeatedly. You ignored your intuition. You silenced your discomfort. You tolerated what didn't feel right just to maintain the connection. And over time, you stopped trusting yourself. Because every time you felt something was off and stayed anyway, you broke a promise, not to them, to you. And self-trust, once broken repeatedly, becomes fragile. That is why you started questioning yourself. Am I overthinking? Am I expecting too much? Maybe I'm the problem. No, you were feeling something real, but you didn't honor it. And when you don't honor your inner voice, you lose alignment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it." Simple, clear, uncompromising. But most people don't live this way. They feel something is wrong and stay. They see inconsistency and explain it. They sense distance and chase clarity. And every time they do that, they move further away from themselves. That is the real damage, not the relationship. The disconnection from self. Shift 5. You trust yourself again. Everything changes the moment you decide this. I will no longer ignore what I feel, not impulsively, not emotionally, but honestly. Because your intuition is not random, it is pattern recognition. It notices inconsistency before your mind explains it. It feels misalignment before your logic justifies it. And when you start trusting it, you move differently. You don't rush, you observe. You don't assume, you assess. You don't chase, you watch. Because clarity becomes your priority, and clarity requires patience. Not passive patience, intentional awareness. You allow people to reveal themselves without interference, without projection, without rewriting their behavior into something it isn't, because truth does not need interpretation. It shows itself through patterns, and patterns never lie. Once you trust yourself, you stop negotiating with discomfort. If something feels off, you address it. If it continues, you step back. If it repeats, you walk away. Not dramatically, not emotionally, decisively. Because self-trust creates boundaries, and boundaries create protection. But this is where most people struggle, because walking away feels like loss, and that fear keeps them stuck. Shift 6. You stop fearing loss. Here is the truth most people never accept. You are not afraid of losing them. You are afraid of facing yourself without them. The silence, the space, the absence. Because in that space there are no distractions, no messages to check, no conversations to analyze, no connection to maintain, just you. And for many people, that feels uncomfortable. So they stay, not because the connection is right, but because the absence feels harder. That is dependency, not love. Because love does not require you to abandon yourself, dependency does. And dependency keeps you attached to what hurts you, even when you know better. But the moment you stop fearing loss, you become powerful. Because now you are not staying out of fear, you are choosing, and choice changes everything. You choose clarity over confusion, you choose peace over intensity. You choose stability over emotional chaos because you finally understand anything that costs your self-respect is too expensive. And once you understand that, you stop settling. Not because you became cold, because you became clear. Clarity removes desperation. Clarity removes chasing. Clarity removes chasing. Clarity removes confusion. And what remains is alignment. Shift 7. You build a knife that doesn't need escape. There is one final shift, the one that holds everything together. Because even if you have boundaries, even if you trust yourself, even if you walk away from what's wrong, you can still fall back into old patterns. If your life feels empty, if your days lack purpose, if your energy has nowhere to go, because emptiness creates vulnerability, and vulnerability seeks distraction, and distraction often looks like connection. That is how cycles repeat. So the solution is not just better relationships, it is a stronger life. A life with structure, direction, meaning. Because when your life is full, you don't chase what drains you. When your time is valuable, you don't waste it on inconsistency. When your focus is clear, you don't get distracted by confusion. This is where Stoicism becomes real, not philosophy, practice. You build routines, you build discipline, you build discipline, you build purpose daily, consistently, because structure protects you. It keeps your energy directed. It keeps your mind stable. It keeps your identity grounded. And once your life is grounded, you stop needing external chaos to feel something. You become calm. And calm is powerful. Because calm people are not easily manipulated. They don't chase intensity. They don't confuse drama with connection. They don't mistake attention for value. They move slowly, clearly, intentionally. And that changes everything. Final truth. You were always the standard. At the end of all this, there is one truth that remains. You were never hard to love. You were just easy to access. You were not too much. You were just giving too much to people who were giving too little. And once you see that, everything changes. You stop shrinking. You stop adjusting. You stop overgiving. You become selective, not because you're afraid, because you're aware. And awareness is power, because now you don't just feel your value, you protect it through your standards, through your silence, through your decisions. You no longer chase connection, you choose it. You no longer hope for clarity, you require it. You no longer tolerate confusion, you remove yourself from it. And that is where your life begins to change, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, permanently. So from this moment forward, remember this: you don't need to be chosen, you need to choose correctly. And that starts with choosing yourself. Every day, every decision, every interaction. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself, you become unstoppable. If this shifted something inside you, don't ignore it. Take one action today that protects your self-respect and commit to it quietly. Because real transformation does not need to be announced, it needs to be lived. If you're ready to rebuild your standards and stop repeating the same patterns, subscribe. Because this is not motivation, this is awareness. This is discipline, this is power. Become the master of your mind. Rebuild, refocus, rise.